Welcome, everybody. It's Friday, and this is Lee Strauss for Element 115 and Spaced Out Radio. Welcome to the show, and welcome to Friday. Tim James will not be joining us tonight. If he does, it may be a little later, and that's okay. We'll welcome him in, just like we welcome all of you in. And, that would be really cool if we could get everybody on a party line, especially on a Friday. Heck yes. Let's get the weekend started right. All right. So we got Mel WD40 and Kitty Cat Whack. Welcome. We got Polly in here as well. We got Race Fan. Thank you very much, Race Fan, for coming on in. We got Cosmic Joe Chronicles as always. And the Jaquetta. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. I'm sorry we did not have a Wednesday night show. I know Grant was dealing with some things, but he will be back next Wednesday. And however, I may not be here next Wednesday. In fact, I know I won't be. And I won't be on next Friday either for Element 115. I'm going to be out of town for a little bit. So you guys are just going to have to hang in there, okay? It'll be okay. I will be posting some stuff, however, on Facebook for you all if you want to go on over there and check it out. We've got an exciting camping trip coming up where we're going to meet up with some people that are into Bigfooting, some people that are into UFO sky watching, and some people that are into some ancient megalithic structures. So it's going to be fantastic for me. I'm sorry you guys won't be able to be there, but I will be sharing some videos on my Facebook page and maybe even on to Spaced Out Radio's Facebook page as well. So you guys will have to check that out because it's going to be good. I'm telling you. Anyway, so tonight we got BYRON LACY coming into the show. And BYRON, this guy is an amazing artist. He's not only an artist, guys. He's also a writer. He is also a music producer and alien contactee. Now I'm going to tell you something about this guy. His art is fantastic, and I've been following him for I think probably about maybe over a year now. And his stuff has always been striking to me. You got to check him out on Facebook to check out his art because it's darn good. And I've always had this weird burning question in the back of my mind. Why is it that E.T. likes people that are very right-brained? Why is that? Is it something about us that are right-brained, our inventiveness, or the way our minds work in a certain way, and the things that we can come up with and maybe even dream about and then make happen? So, without further ado, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to hit the intro and then we're going to get right into it with BYRON. All right. So hold on to your hats because here we go.
Welcome to the dimension of the unknown, where the imagination reigns supreme, crafting worlds and realities that defy the limitations of our mortal coil. Beyond the veil of reality, there exists a realm that defies the boundaries of human perception. Certain places beckon with an otherworldly allure, stirring the senses and whispering secrets of a dimension that lies just beyond the threshold of our mundane existence. The air is alive with an electric anticipation, as if the next step might unravel the very fabric of reality, plunging us into an abyss from which there is no return. This realm is a boundless expanse, as infinite as the cosmos and as timeless as the ages. It inhabits the twilight zones of existence, where the glow of knowledge and the shadows of ignorance entwine like lovers in a cosmic dance. here the rational and the mystical converge, suspended between the depths of human terror and the pinnacle of our understanding. Welcome to Element 115.
Hey guys, real quick before we bring Byron on, I see we have Frankie B said he sent me a video. Guys, when you send me stuff, make sure you tell me, yeah, this is Frankie B. Or this is Cosmic Joe Chronicles. Give me your name on Facebook when you send me things so that I know exactly who I'm talking to, because we all have different names, from YouTube to Facebook to this to that to the other things. Clue me in, please, so that I will take a look at your stuff and let you know about it. Anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and bring in Byron. Hey Byron, how you doing? Oh, I'm not hearing you. Hold on a minute. Let's try this. All right, there we go. We got you.
All right, I'm doing very good. How are you?
Good. Thank you, Kitty Cat Whack, for the super sticker. We do appreciate it here at Spaced Out Radio. Byron, you have been involved with this phenomena since you were a kid. However, you did not know that at your earliest time. You didn't realize it till later, as I found out as we were talking earlier today. So I would love it if you would get into your story and tell us about how this all came about.
In 1956, we had moved to Seagoville, and it was before summer or very near to summer, because I hadn't started school yet, which would start in September. I was in my bedroom, and Mama had this routine where she would walk me to the bedroom, and she would help me up into the bed. And it was one of those old iron beds. I mean, it was like probably from the early 1900s. We'd gotten it from my grandmother's house. So it was high up off of the floor. The mattress was up high, more so than beds are now. And she kissed me goodnight and tucked me in. And I kicked off the covers after she left because it was always too hot. She asked me if I wanted the door open or closed, and I said I wanted it open so the light would come in from the hallway. And she left the room. I watched her leave, and I turned around and I laid down, and there were three little guys at the foot of the bed on the left side, and they were about 4 feet tall. I could see them from their shoulders up. They had really huge heads. And over in the side of the room was a guy that was almost as tall as the ceiling. And he was dressed like Captain Hook. And I couldn't really see his face. Captain Hook was one of my favorite cartoon characters. And he had a coat on, like a pirate's coat. And he had a big hat, which I realized later he was a mantis creature, and that was his head. But he was making this illusion in my mind, and he was sort of dancing around in a weird way, but they walked strangely, but I thought it was dancing. And I didn't say anything to him. No, wait. I jumped ahead. The very first time those three guys appeared at the foot of my bed, and I yelled for my mother, and she came into the room, but they were gone. And I told her what I'd seen, the three little guys, and I asked her what they were, and she didn't say anything. She said I needed to go to bed. I needed to go to sleep. And she tucked me in again, and she left the room. They didn't come back. The next night, it was the same thing. And they disappeared the minute she got in the room, and she said, "Son, if they come in here again, don't call me, because they're going to be gone when I get here.
Hmm.
And you're just going to have to learn to deal with them yourself." Then she
Oh,
kissed me on the forehead and tucked me in and told me to go to sleep. The next night, there they were, but the tall guy was over to my left, just barely in my line of sight. And I was looking at them, and they were staying longer this time. And this guy was moving around. It looked like he was dancing a jig or something, but there was no music. And one of them's face, it kept shifting, and suddenly it would look like a rag doll's face, and then it would shift back. And I think he was trying to cause me to see an illusion, but it just wasn't working for him. Well, the room started getting bigger, much bigger, and the bed started rotating in the middle of the room. And it was like I was tied down, although I could barely look down at my wrists. There were no ropes on me, but I couldn't move. And I've later figured they had moved me to a ship because the room couldn't get big.
right.
And the guy was still dancing around, and I could see him a little plainer, but he still looked like Captain Hook. And I was fighting being upset because I was sort of watching him, it was interesting in a weird way. And then all of a sudden I felt I was getting ready to scream, and the room was back to normal. The bed was normal, and in where it was being, it wasn't rotating. The three little guys were gone, and the big tall guy was gone. And I pulled my pillow and my blankets over my head because I figured, they didn't hurt me. They didn't do anything to me that I knew of as bad, but I didn't ever want to see them again. So I pulled the covers over my head, and I went to sleep. And that was the last thing I knew about them until 2000 and no, not 2000, till 1959.
Yeah.
And at 1959, I left we had moved to Seagoville, as I said before. We'd moved into a new house, and I was left in this house by myself while my parents went to get the moving van that had the furniture in it. And I was walking around, and I'd been through the whole house, and all of a sudden I noticed that there were French doors in the wall where there hadn't been any French doors before. And they had white sheets on the other side of the glass, and I couldn't see through it. And I walked up and I opened the French doors, and there was a long hallway. Now, actually, see, it should have been the outside of the house. There was this long hallway, and it had windows, but they had sheets hanging down too, so I couldn't see what was outside. And the hallway was about 20 feet long, and at the other end were French doors with sheets behind them. So I went down to the French doors, and then I opened them. But when I opened them, it was the French doors going back into the house. So I walked back in the house, and then the French doors were gone, and there was a potted plant that was the only thing that was in the house there. and I was looking at the potted plant, and I was thinking the plant was God, the rocks in it were God, everything's God. I had this big opinion that everything was
Wow.
God.
Wow.
And my parents, I also knew that my parents were going to take me someplace very soon,
Mm-hmm.
and they were going to say things that were frightening, but that I shouldn't pay any attention to it because none of it was actually true. Just to sit there and be quiet and daydream. And it was just 3 days later that they took me to the First Baptist Church, and they were having I forget what you call it. They had a special preacher there, and he was preaching hell, brimstone, and I just didn't pay
Oh,
any
yes.
attention to it because everything was God. So,
Mhm.
but I didn't know those were aliens. I didn't see them. All I saw was those doors be there and then not be there anymore.
Do you think,
Then
just real quick, hold on, I got I got a quick question for you. Do you believe that they always come in threes? Or have you noticed that?
the Greys do, or
Yes.
when the times that I've seen them, there were three.
That is a very, very common thing. In fact, in my own situation, my own abductions, it's always been three. Always three.
Three is a magic number.
Yeah. And I think it's maybe part of their protocol, actually, like, for safety reasons, that sort of thing.
Right, I was thinking that too.
Yeah.
I've been thinking just recently, and I made a post uh, because some of us get treated really well.
Hmm.
They don't ever hurt us. They don't really frighten us. We might be frightened, but they don't do it themselves. And then there's people that are scared, and I can't say the word that I want to say. They're scared, and they hurt them. And I've been trying to figure out a way for a couple of years of how to help them get into the situation better. And nobody buys anything I say. So I think now, and I thought this yesterday, and I've known it for a long time, but I think there are contactees, which is us, which we
Hmm.
have contact with them, and they're nice to us, and they talk to us, and they show us things. And then there are abductees, and they're strictly abducted, and the tests run on them. I don't know the answer, but this is one way I've come to settle this question in my mind.
I've unfortunately had a little bit of both. So I've had what I thought was a very negative situation happen. And once I went through regression using EMDR, it turned out it wasn't as negative as I thought.
I've wondered about that with everybody in general too. Your own fear.
Yes.
Yeah. I have never had fear except that I was just amazed about them, and so that saved me a little bit.
Yeah.
Of course,
Well,
there have probably been things they've said to me that I don't know because
exactly.
my memory is.
Right. Well, I would ask you to go ahead and continue with your story. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Well, that's okay. Um, so anyway, went through a lot of things in life. They've saved my life 10 different times. Oh, actually 11 now. And I made it through high school, but I always felt different from everybody. And things didn't mean the same to me as they did to everybody else. Um, like I've never been one to try and make a bunch of money. My goal was to make enough money to live and to have a lot of free time to do art and to write and things like that.
Yeah.
But I was in junior college, and one of my friends from Seagoville that I'd grown up with after the age of 6, he was there with me, and he witnessed, or he was a part of what happened. But we were I was in the band, and we had just had, or we were getting ready to have homecoming. We were having the pep rally for homecoming. The game was going to be that night. And we had a cannon and a cannon squad that they would shoot at the end of a pep rally. Well, we finished, we were all standing around and talking, and we had been told not to leave until we were dismissed by the band director. And the cannon went off. Well, no, skipped another part. This guy started talking. I was talking to a friend, and this guy came up and he tapped me on the shoulder and he started talking to me. And I'm going, and I'd never seen him before. I was at a small junior college, and I'd seen pretty much everybody at least once that was there. This was a complete stranger. He starts talking to me, and I'm thinking, why the heck are you interrupting me when I'm talking to someone? And I turned to face him and said something, I don't remember what. The cannon blew up, and a burst of wind went right across my back, where my shirt was up just a little bit from my pants. A strong breeze. And I saw the guy I had been talking to hit the ground. And then everybody was like somebody had stomped on an ant bed. Everybody was moving around. There was smoke, a little dust coming out of several buildings, because the cannon, because it was homecoming, they had put a double load of powder in it. And what's worse is, though, they had put a double wadding in it. So the cannon had blown up. And even though it was facing away from us, the back end, which is what blew up, came towards us, and it broke into 3 or 4 good size pieces, and then a bunch of little ones. 3 of them went into buildings and knocked bricks out of them. 1 of them went into the pelvis of the guy I'd been talking to. And if I hadn't moved, it would have hit me at the base of the spine. And of course, he was in the hospital, and several people were at the hospital getting cuts. And my friend, he was just standing there in the middle of it, and he had seen me, and he had seen me almost get hit. And so that, and I turned back around to tell this guy, hey, you saved my life. And he was gone.
Wow.
Now, it's my opinion that he was a disguised alien.
Oh, I got you.
Because never saw him again. Never saw him before.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Just something there to take your attention away, to get you to move out of the way. Right. It's almost as if they know the future or can predict things and adjust. Maybe they adjust the timeline or adjust things physically so that certain people at certain times won't get hit or hurt.
After 10 times, I'm pretty sure they did. Well, I've read they see our future, and I'm 99% positive they do. I was singing with a country music band. I would sing 3 songs with them, or 4 songs, and give the guy, well, he was a one-man band. He played keyboards, guitar, sang, had a tape with music on it. And at a club, And I had gone up there, and there were stairs at each side, about 3 steps down, and a concrete floor in front of the stage. I always went down those steps, but after I finished my set, I decided to step off the end of the front of the stage. I thought that would look cool. And I had 1 foot left on the ground, and I was just about to jump when I realized that my foot was stuck under a bundle of speaker cables.
Yeah, this is a good point. In fact, this thought that Candace is talking about here. Do you think it's possible that some people, they believe that they were helped by angels, could be helped by aliens? Do you think there's a correlation there?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm thinking the same thing.
Definitely, I do. I don't even believe in angels. I believe in aliens because I've seen them. So I don't think that's even belief. Anyway, I was going to jump off the stage, and I realized my foot was caught under a bundle of speaker cables, and that I was going to fall off that stage straight onto my forehead. And this was before, no, I knew about the aliens at this point. But anyway, suddenly I could not move, and my foot that was still on the stage pushed me up and spun me around, which took my foot out from under the cables, and then I sat down with my feet on the floor, just like if somebody were setting a salt and pepper shaker down on a table. And now I tried this at home several times, and each time I'd land, I would have to move backwards to get my balance. So, and there was over 100 people in there that night, and they were it was like a wave of silence went through the whole room, and everybody was totally quiet in this bar. And in fact, they were having some kind of a get together from the college as well. The guy that was playing guitar, he goes, "It's okay, ladies and gentlemen, we rehearsed that." And I looked at him, we didn't rehearse anything. So I got real happy, and I walked out of there thanking them in my head for saving my life.
Yeah.
And in 1961 or 2, well, I was 13, so it had to be 63. I was riding my bicycle home with a bunch of other kids, and we rode on the side of the road, and suddenly I realized that this big Dodge was coming straight. It was coming across the yellow line, and then it was coming straight for me, and I didn't know what I was going to do, and I didn't even have time to stop. Then I was on the ground in the ditch, and I couldn't move. I couldn't move my hands, my arms, anything, but my body was going head over heels. And I would come up and I would see the tire of the car, the fender of the car, the headlight, and the sky. And then it was over and over, and there was 3 rotations. And then my body straightened out, and I flew through a barbed wire fence, and I got one little scratch on my arm. There's only a foot between the wires, and I went between the top and the one after that. I flew over that and landed in a pasture with tall grass. And there was this policeman there that was the crossing guard, and I started to get up, and he put his hand on my chest and pushed me down. He said, "Don't move." And I said, "Oh, I feel fine." He said, "That doesn't matter. You could be hurt and not know it." And I said, "Well, I've lost my glasses." So he found my glasses and gave them to me, and I put them back on. They had an ambulance. They got me, and they took me to the hospital in Kaufman, which was about 20 minutes away, my teacher's husband had hit me.
Oh.
So I made a passing grade that year real easy. But they gave me a shot for oh shoot, whatever you get if you get a dirty nail in you or something like that. Tetanus.
Okay.
They gave me a tetanus shot, and they had me spend the night because he said I might be hurt and not know it. So I spent the night and I was fine. And he said I could go, and he called my parents, and they came and got me, and they were taking me home. And my father said, "Well, we've got a surprise for you." And I said, "What is it?" And he said, "We've got you a new bicycle. The Coons bought you a new bicycle." I said, "I don't want a new bicycle. My bicycle is fine. I love my bike." And he goes, "Okay, well, we'll talk about it more in a little bit." So we got home, and there on the porch was an American Flyer with a pumper, a light, the streamers coming out of the handlebars, and huge compared to my other bike. That was the bike at that time. And bikes in those days were made out of steel. They weren't made out of aluminum. They wouldn't bend, nothing. And my bike was a good bike. It was made in Germany, but I had taken the fenders off, and it didn't have it light or anything like that. Well, I said, now I've got two bikes. And Dad goes, "Come with me." So I followed him around the side of the house under the carport, and there was my bicycle leaning against the wall. And it was bowed like a crescent moon, with the center of the impact being where I had been sitting. And I laid it down on the ground, and there was a foot between the concrete and the seat, maybe even a little more than that. And I'm going, in my mind, I'm going, that car had to hit me to do that.
Yeah. I can't say I've had as many experiences close to death as you have. I've had a couple where I saw what would happen to me, but did not happen to me. So it's very possible, my train of thinking here is very possible that they somehow are able to interrupt what's going to happen to people that they are in contact with. What reason do you think that they keep coming for you? Do you have an idea of why they're interested in you?
After I knew I was abducted, I had a period where they talked to me. When I'd meditate, they would talk to me. Or actually, sometimes I wouldn't even be meditating, and they would start a conversation about something. And I'd been trying to figure out the thing to ask them to give me some reason as why this was all happening. And he was about to leave, and I said, "Hey, why have you saved my life?" And he said, "We want you alive," which is no answer at all. I mean, it's an answer, but it wasn't what I was wanting. I wanted a reason.
Yeah.
So, and I found out I was an abductee around 2009. And that is when I had left a job. I worked as a investigator for Child Protective Services for 5 years. And I left that job. And so basically I was through working for the government or pretty much anybody else. I could get Social Security and everything and my retirement. But I knew No, I didn't know I was an abductee at that point. At that point,
Okay.
I was driving on North Street after dinner going home, and I stopped at a stoplight, and this is a 4-lane road, the biggest one in town at the time, with a turn lane in the middle. And I'm looking at the stoplight, wishing it would turn so I could go home and watch TV. And suddenly a dish, or a disc about the size of a dinner plate that looked like it was swirling water, which a psychic told me later it was not water. It was something else. I can't remember what she said. Anyway, it was swirling. It got bigger and bigger and bigger, and it got about 6 to 8 feet across and up and down. And then right before the light changed, it exploded. It looked like the Stargate in the movie Stargate with Kurt Russell, except it didn't have a frame around it, and it spewed the water out, and it disappeared before it hit the ground. And when it was going on, I was looking around. Nobody else saw it. There were cars next to me. There were cars across from me. Nobody saw it. Nobody was looking at anything up there except the light. Didn't look, what the hell? What the heck is that? And so I went home. And I told my friend about it. I had this friend who was always talking to me about UFOs and videos he'd seen, and he'd want me to watch something, and I'd sort of fall asleep, which is unusual because I never fall. It's hard for me to go to sleep at night, or it used to be. Anyway, he had a bed in his living room. I would lay on the bed. The next week, on the same day, probably almost exact same time, because I was leaving dinner to go home, the same thing happened. And I told him about it, and he didn't say anything. And we went for a walk down the creek. We'd walk for our exercise every day. We walked for almost an hour and back, 30 minutes and 30 minutes. We got inside, and I just I had to know what he thought. And he knew everything that had ever happened to me. I had always told him everything. He knew about the bicycle. He knew everything. And he knew about the little men.
Interesting.
So he said, "Do you really want to know what I think?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Are you sure you want to know?" I said, "Yeah, I want to know." And he said, "Okay, because if I tell you, there's no going back." And I said, "Well, I want to know." And he said, "I think you're an alien abductee." And I said, "You're crazy." And he said, he turned around and he wrote down 3 web addresses on a piece of paper and gave it to me. He said, "You look these up when you get home." So I got home. I didn't look them up. I threw them on my desk and I went and watched TV. He kept bugging me. He bugged me for 3 or 4 days. And finally I looked it up, and it said, answer these 99 questions. And if you answer most of them yes, you were probably an abductee, and you should contact somebody who knows more about it and talk to them. Well, every one of them that was for a man, I answered yes. And there were about 5 that were only for women. And of course, they didn't apply. So I went back the next day and I told him. Well, I struggled with this for a week, thinking I'm an abductee. Like he said, you can't stop them. He said, you can weld yourself in an iron box and they will get to you. You cannot stop them. You have to just accept it.
Yeah.
And he told me that several times, several different days in a row. Then I got home and I was thinking, wait, if I have an implant, because I think I do, in fact, I know I do now, but then I thought I probably did, or he told me I did. He said they could read my mind anytime they wanted. I thought, if they can read my mind, I'm going to start talking to them, and I'm going to ask them the same question over and over and over again. In fact, I walked for 4 to 6 hours a day through my woods asking them this question, and it boiled down to, I want to know if you're abducting me. I want to know if I'm crazy. And I thought, they will get sick of hearing me. So after the 6th day, I went and I played a gig at a restaurant, and I messed up real bad. I kept forgetting the words, so I was making them up. They were country western songs, and everybody there knew country western songs. They were having a great time, and this guy came out of got up from his table, and he said, look, I'm a guitar player, and I know all these songs. Get your words out of your guitar case, and I'll play guitar for you after your break, and you sing. So we did that, and it worked great. And he's played professionally some too as a guitar player. My last song was "Hey Mr. Spaceman" by the Byrds, because it's a rock song, but it's country at the same time. So I sang that song, and it was about midnight. I was real tired, and we loaded up my truck with my stuff, my speakers and everything. Came home, and it was about 12, and I sat around for a little while because I didn't feel sleepy, even though I was tired. And I went and tried to go to sleep, and I couldn't go to sleep. So I put on this tape by a company named Zygon, which made entrainment tapes. They were some of the first ones, CDs, that you could listen to, and they would put you in an altered state of consciousness. And sometimes I would fall asleep in that altered state. I use them all the time.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't fall asleep, but all of a sudden, the big guy with a huge head that looked like a praying mantis wearing a robe was standing at the foot of my bed, and there were 3 little grays there, or I didn't know they were grays, but they were grays. And no, that's not what happened. I've told this a lot, but I get mixed up. I did fall asleep, I thought.
Okay.
And I woke up and I was in a hammock. Only it was hung from side to side instead of end to end. And it was made out of some weird material that I had never seen before. It almost seemed like leather or parchment, but I wasn't sure what it was. And there were blankets in it. And some of them looked new, and some of them looked real old with holes in them. And a few had little figures on them like a kid's blanket, and they were flannel, horses or things like that. So I thought, I'm going to get out and look around. So I put my hands at my head and grabbed hold of the edges of it and pulled myself out, and I couldn't see very well. It was foggy. And then I reached up, and I wasn't wearing my glasses, and I wasn't wearing any clothes. In fact, I was just like when I had gone to bed. So I couldn't see strong detail, but I thought, woo, in a word that I can't say, I'm in an alien ship. They're telling me what they did to me. They're showing me. And then I heard there was a door to my left in a wall that I had been sort of facing. First, though, I did notice there were 2 or 3 other hammocks there. There was nobody in them. And there was this door, but it was not closed. In fact, I didn't see a door. It was an opening, probably slid in and out of the wall. And there were lights beyond me, and I heard footsteps, but not loud. But I went, oh my God, they're coming. I don't know if I'm ready to talk to aliens right now. And then I was laying on a metal table, and there was this big guy with a huge head wearing a robe, and he was standing there, and there were the 3 little grays, just like when I was 6 years old. In fact, I remembered seeing them. There they were. And he was back away from me, and then my knees were bent and my legs were up, and I didn't have any I didn't have any clothing on to begin with. Didn't have any clothing on. And then I was in my bed watching me in that room, like it was a huge holograph, but it wasn't. It was real.
Wait a minute. You were watching yourself?
Yep. And then the picture turned into black and white, like a faded into black and white. And then it was X-ray. I could see X-ray, but before that happened, it zoomed in where I could see my knees to my neck. I couldn't see the little guys or the big guy. They were protected from this view. And I could see my ribs. I could see everything. I could see my heart beating. And then I could see the probe that they stuck in me. And it went in a foot or more. And then everything was gone. And I laid down. I was in my bed. Now, I met a man named Daryl Sims who called himself the Alien Hunter. And I ran with him for months, did some lectures at his meetings. And he said I was the real meal deal. But he told me they can make you see whatever they want to see. So you were in your bed at that point, but you were in that room too, or you were perceiving it. He said you may not have been in your bed. You were just seeing it that way. Mm-hmm. He said they can move your perceptions from whatever point they want to. So that cleared that up later, but I didn't know that at first. Yeah. And I went to sleep, and I just fell right asleep. I was almost, when I woke up, I was amazed at how much I'd gone to sleep. And I woke up and I went, wow, you know, that put me to sleep without the CD. And then I went, and I was on an alien ship, and they're abducting me. And then I started crying, and I couldn't stop crying. And I didn't know why I was crying. I didn't feel sad, but I was crying. I thought maybe it's something from my subconscious. You know, I thought what it could be, but I never knew or figured it out. And so I drew a picture. When I stopped crying, I drew a picture of the tall guy with the big roundish head and the robe. And I didn't do a good job of it. You've seen the picture or one symbol. Yes. That was a little bit better. But then I started crying again. And I went through 3 rounds of crying, and it just stopped, and I was fine. Later that day, I went over to my friend's house. We were going to walk, and we did, and we got back, and I told him what had happened. And I said, but look, I've got this drawing, You've never shown me anything like this, so I know this was a dream. See, I was trying to hold on as long as I could to it being a dream. So I let it down, and he turned around, turned on his computer, pulled up something, and he said, "Come here." I went over and looked, and there was a kid's drawing that looked almost exactly like mine, of the tall with the robe, the big head.
Yep.
And over a period of time, I realized that that mantis had talked to me many times.
Can I ask you a question about this robe? Did it happen to have a high collar on it?
Yes.
Did it have stripe like was it a different color as it ran down the center, like where the a zipper or buttons or something might be where it was together?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
This one was purple, and it had
Okay.
almost paisley or something mixed in, some kind
Okay.
of patterns or stuff. Now, Daryl told me that that's a sign of rank.
Yes. From what I have seen, I would say that higher ranking beings do have the higher collar. Yeah, what you're saying. There's a lot of familiar stuff here in your discussion, with what you're talking about, with the things that I've experienced. I almost think that we need to do a show where we're discussing your story and my story and where things link together, because there is so many similarities. Um, and it's kind of shocking. Actually, it's kind of shocking and validating at the same time.
They When I was first married, I walked into the living room. My wife had gotten up before me, and I was 21. And she goes, "What happened to your leg?" And I looked down, and there's this huge bruise on my shin bone. And I said, "I don't know. I don't know what happened." And she said, "You hurt yourself at night more than when you're asleep, more than any person I've ever seen." So that had actually happened more times. I just, blew it off. Plus, I was making art and doing a lot of carpentry work outside, and I'm clumsy. Um, another, they've saved my life from committing suicide several times.
Mm.
One of them, I'm going to go over with real quickly.
Okay.
Went to this psychologist who I went to these psychologists. Well, okay, it won't be so quick. We went to Russ because I was having problems with depression. And this was 76. We had moved into this house, which was like a spook house. It was built in the 1890s, and it had not been kept up. It didn't have electricity, it didn't have water. It had uh, board frame walls in two of the rooms, and they had put wallpaper around it and cheesecloth under that. And it was hanging down from the ceiling. And I was fixing this up. We slept on a pile of sheetrock. I was fixing this up while we were living in it because we got the house for $1,000. And we got the house and 2 acres and moved the house for less than $7,000.
Mm-hmm.
So we couldn't pass it up. And anyway, I was having depression, and we went to Rusk, where they have the big mental institution, the biggest one around at that time. And they talked to 2 or 3 people, and then this woman came in to wrap it all up, and she said, "There's not anything wrong with you, but do you eat much sugar?" I said, "Oh yeah, I love sugar. I eat it all the time." She goes, "Well, they've just been doing this research, and there's a book out called Sugar Blues. And I think you should cut all of the sugar out of your diet." Now, I found out later that I have hypoglycemia. And of course, you can't eat sugar and have hypoglycemia. So anyway, we were going to this, they sent me back to Nacogdoches to an outreach clinic from their place where I could talk to a counselor at a really reduced rate on a sliding scale. And she talked to me a while, and I'd mentioned wanting to be hypnotized. And now I still didn't know I was an abductee. She put me in touch with this counselor who was a hypnotist, and she had also given me an IQ test. And she said, it's way above everybody. She said you could even be called a genius. So anyway, she had me go with him because I had cancer, and I had heard by L. Ron Hubbard in his book that if you have a trauma in your childhood, especially as a baby, and I was only 2.5 years old, it could stick with you. And if you can somehow release it, and that hypnotism was one way to do that, then you might be better. And so we did a session, and he gave me a suggestion to feel better, and I did. So, and then I went back a week or two later, and we did it again. And he told me if I ever needed him to call him. Well, I woke up, I was feeling worse and worse and worse. And I started waking up and picking my pistol off the bed and off the floor and laying it on my chest and deciding whether I wanted to make it through the day.
Ooh.
And at one point, the answer was no. And I thought, all right, I'm going to call Jim. So I called him, and he said, how soon can you be here? And I told him I can be there in 20 minutes. And he said, well, I just had a cancellation. Come on in. So I went in, and he hypnotized me, to hang on to life the way I had when I had cancer. And we talked a little bit more than that. And anyway, I left. That happened 3 or 4 times. I'm going to just say 3 times. And got through, and he said, I absolutely never have a cancellation, not in the entire time. And I'm not surprised. He was great. He said, every time you've called me, someone had just called right before you and canceled their appointment.
Wow.
And he said, I think somebody's looking out for you.
Yep. Definitely.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're coming to the end of our show, my friend.
Oh, yes.
We got 2 minutes left here, so I'm going to ask you, how can people get in touch with you to either chat with you privately or look at some of your art?
Well, they can always talk to me on Facebook. They can write a email to me, which is all little letters, BYRON LACY is one word, BYRON LACY 21 numbers. So BYRON LACY 21 at yahoo.com, or they can find me on Facebook. Now there's two pages, there may be 3 pages. There are 2 pages of me.
We're going to have to cut it short here, unfortunately, my friend. But I think your message can definitely help other people that are dealing with the abduction phenomena. And I would ask those people to reach out to you for advice if they are. Sir, I really appreciate you being on tonight, and we will definitely have to talk again because we have a lot in common with our experiences. And if you would just hold on back in the back for me so that I can play the outro and get us moving.
Okay.
Sorry, guys.